Hello, everyone, and welcome to Exploring Cinema. I'm Nate.
I'm Dylan.
And I'm Adam.
And we're three guys who like movies. That's it. That's the whole show.
That's it. That's everything. That's all you get.
Just a quick intro. That's who we are. We're going to leave now. Today, we are talking about The Wind Rises, the supposed to be swan song for Hayao Miyazaki, but he has a new movie coming out, just released in Japan, coming out in the US, probably November, December. We also have another channel called Speak, Film, and Enter, where we review new movies, but we wanted to create a separate space to talk about older movies where we're not kind of tied to release dates and kind of keeping up with what's coming out now and making sure we get it out in a certain amount of time. This is a dedicated space for basically watching whatever we feel like, whenever we feel like, and we can talk about it here. We thought The Wind Rises would be a really good movie to talk about now because it's got some similarities to Oppenheimer, which comes out this weekend. It's about a guy who invented the fighter planes that Japan flew in World War II. Adam, I'm stepping on your toes a little bit, actually.
I was going to say, I almost jumped in.
Would you like to tell the people what The Wind Rises is about?
I would love to. The Wind Rises from 2013. A lifelong love of flight inspires Japanese aviation engineer Jiro Horikoshi, whose storied career includes the creation of the A6M World War II fighter plane.
Yeah, very interesting story and a very interesting topic for a Studio Ghibli film, where this is just one of the differences I think that you get with Japanese animation versus American animation, where Miyazaki's a household name, probably the greatest animator ever. And this is not a kid's movie, and that's totally fine. They don't all have to be, but in the US, it's tougher for people to make more adult-centered and more mature stories that are animated. So I think it's really cool that Miyazaki made this. It's a really interesting story where kind of him expecting it to be his last. So you can kind of see that a lot as the movie goes along. So we'll dive right in here with just kind of introduction overview of the movie. This was his 11th movie. It's supposed to be his last. His 12th movie comes out this year. Came out in 2013. Had a budget of $30 million, and it made $136 million off a $30 million budget. So good job, everybody involved.
Good work.
It made $5 million in the US and $113 million US dollars in Japan. It was the highest grossing Japanese movie of 2013. Not surprising. Generally a very highly regarded film, 88% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average score of 8 out of 10. Nominated for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars, and it lost to Frozen.
Yeah, of all movies, Jesus, like
high score on Letterboxd as well. Average score of 4.1 out of 5. And that's pretty much all I had for the background stuff on kind of the making of and budget, box office, all that stuff. Not surprising to me at all that it was the highest grossing movie of the year in Japan, because every time Miyazaki comes out with a movie, it's an event. Case in point, they're not even promoting his new movie. They just said he made a new one. Here's a picture of the cover, and we're not going to tell you what it's about. Go see it. And people will flock to the theaters, as I will be whenever it comes out in the US.
Yeah, I think before we get too far, I want to add some of the intro, kind of the details and stuff that you added. Obviously, there's an English dub and there's the original Japanese, but the English dub, the actors they got, I mean, as they've done for most of their English dubs, are fantastic. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, Martin Short, Stanley Tucci, Mandy Patinkin, Mae Whitman, Werner Herzog, William H. Macy. Like, there's just some absolutely I mean, Elijah Wood has a small part. Like, this is a star-studded cast for this release for the English version, and I think that does a lot, obviously, for the American audience. But I think this movie would have been great without them, but it's extra great because of them. So, and that's not to take anything away from the original Japanese actors.
Yeah, it's fun with casts like that. I did watch the English version on HBO Max, and it took me a while. I eventually had to pause it because main character Jiro sounded so familiar I was like, I know that voice. I cannot continue any longer without
Yeah.
confirming who this is.
I was writing him down as I was watching. I was like, who is that? I think that's this person. I think that's this person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that, Dylan, you got anything, or can we dive into opening statements? I guess I was going to ask, had either of you seen this before?
Zero. No.
Yeah, no, I had not seen this before, and also I had not heard about the new Miyazaki movie, so most of my analysis refers to this as his final movie.
Well,
but, you know,
when
like
he made
all
it,
great,
he thought it was.
like all
he
greats
said that
and
a couple
legends.
times, right?
Well, I don't think I was alone in thinking it was. Like all greats and legends, you got to retire once and then actually come back.
Yeah,
You got
exactly.
So, it makes sense. So
yeah, just
but
like
yeah,
Michael
we can go to the
Jordan.
opening statements.
Yeah, so I just will say really quickly, I watched this probably back in like 2015, was not a huge fan, rewatched it, and so very interesting new perspective for me. So yeah, opening statement, I guess for me, it's very simple. It's just that Miyazaki is one of the best to ever make movies, period. Probably the best ever to make animated movies. This is, I checked again, I like this way more on a second viewing. I actually liked it a lot. And I think I have this as my 6th favorite Miyazaki movie, which is really just a huge testament to how many amazing movies he's made, because this movie is really, really good. So, I mean, he's just got a stack. Like I said, this was his 11th movie, and he's going to have 12 now. So right in the middle for me of Miyazaki movies, there's only one I haven't seen, and it was his very first one, which might be a fun one for us to revisit when it's called The Castle of Cagliostro, which is kind of a caper hijinks.
I heard it's also like not, like his other ones in the sense of magical.
Not a Ghibli, like Ghibli didn't exist.
Yeah, I would also be interested to see that.
That might be a fun one to do when his new movie comes out in the U.S. Kind of right around that time. Go back and see his first one. But that's just really kind of the first thing I wanted to say. It's not an original thought. It's not anything that everybody else isn't just clearly aware of. But he's one of my favorite directors of all time, period, animation or not. And they're just stunning movies. I mean, just to look at these things, even if the stories were mediocre, which they're not, they'd still be great just to look at.
Yeah, they're incredible.
So, yeah. That's it for me. Just a little Miyazaki praise to kind of kick off the episode.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
If you couldn't tell, we're fans here. My opening statement is a delicate final film from Miyazaki about turning your dreams into reality and finding love along the way.
Oh, adorable.
Well said, Dylan. That was beautiful.
Over to you, Adam.
A beautifully quiet and poignant film.
All right, so we all kind of agree. This is
a
beautiful movie in basically every way. Just the look of it and the story is, I thought, very touching. It's an interesting story to focus on a character like this, I think, where, like I said, that's why we're talking about this around when Oppenheimer comes out. Where you got somebody inventing something or creating something and following these ideas and these passions.
Yes.
And kind of what does it turn into? How much responsibility do you have, or do you hold for what eventually becomes of your creation?
Yeah, the ethics around it.
Yeah, exactly. This was kind of there was some controversy around the movie when it came out. Just kind of talking about that, like just looking at how much the movie attempts to sort of let this guy or just like sort of Japan at all off the hook. I think that's kind of a rough read of this movie. I think there's lots of guilt,
very much,
and questioning, and I don't think it lets Japan off the hook at all. And it certainly doesn't absolve the main character of all responsibility. I think that was actually kind of just one of my questions. We can get into that now if you want, or we can kind of hold that off for.
I mean, no, we're done with opening statements. I guess we can roll right over to questions.
Yeah. So mine was just, are you satisfied with how Jiro is portrayed, and specifically his role in designing the World War II fighter planes? And I kind of go back to this line when he's talking to the Italian designer in his dreams. When the Italian guy says, I can't remember it word for word, but to the effect of, do you want a world with or without the pyramids?
Yeah.
Kind of presenting him with like the cost of all these great things. And then that's an interesting question, because it's always sort of it almost implies like we can't get to these things we can't make beautiful things without doing them in like a horrible way and sacrificing people along the way. I don't think the movie is necessarily attempting to answer that question. I think it's much more just focused on the main character and how he says he just wants to make something beautiful. And that's just kind of the dream for him. And he gets caught up in this. And I like the way that the movie portrays him. I just wanted to kind of ask you guys how you felt as well, because that was kind of not a major point of contention, but it was something that was brought up when the movie was released.
Yeah, I will say before we get too far into his character that Miyazaki did. This is a conglomeration of a couple different stories. Like he wrote a manga that there's now this, also coupled with the actual story of the real person, Jiro. I forget. I'm not going to be able to pronounce his last name very well. But
Horikoshi.
Horikoshi, thank you. And the stuff in his life in this movie that's like the personal stuff is all fictionalized. All of that is not real, but the person himself and his the design of the plane and all that stuff, that is all real, but the personal stuff is different.
No, that's a good point to bring up, because it's not really a traditional biopic. It's kind of
takes some liberty.
I think I read he read that line that he said basically that he just wanted to make something beautiful to that effect, and kind of thought there's a story there. Yeah. And then this is kind of about like, who is this guy? The movie clearly attempts, I think successfully, to show him in a positive light, like doing good things, especially in the first half of the movie when he helps the women on the train.
I think it's Kino.
Naoko. Yeah, when he helps them during the earthquake, which we'll talk about because I thought that was nuts. And there's several other things where it's clearly painting a portrait of a person who does not have a violent bone in his body, helps other people, and clearly the way he's portrayed in this movie is not somebody who's gonna like hop on this fascist train and be like, yeah, let's build these to bomb other countries. He people talk about it around him and he sort of brushes it off or ignores it. There's kind of a funny moment when he even sort of half jokingly suggests that the plane would work a little better if we just removed the guns.
Yeah, no, I like that.
And like you can tell, like he's sort of kidding because he knows he can't.
That's not an option.
But he's also, I think, if like left to his own devices, like the guns are not the part that he cares about at all.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it does a good job of that. I think because the way that we're introduced to him as a young boy through his own dreams, and then like you said, just little things, little acts or little words he says, like it does a very good job of establishing that. So I didn't feel ever like, I don't know, like he was a bad person just for it. It felt like every other side character, like his boss or his coworker, or like they kind of knew what was up and were kind of wise that like, yeah, these are going to be built to like drop bombs. And like, we're going to, and like kind of more, I don't know, didn't feel as tormented by it as he did.
Yeah. So that's a good way to put it.
When he is the one who's the most tormented by the idea of war and what's going to happen with these planes he designs, it's like, okay, like I think it does a good job of reinforcing, like, yeah, in a perfect world, he would have loved to remove the guns and just make weird, elaborate flying stuff for his whole life.
Yeah, because there's that line as well that's like, remember, like planes aren't built for war. Planes aren't built to make money. They're built because they can be beautiful and they can do these things. It's something along those lines. I think it's said by his like quote unquote mentor, the Italian guy. I'm gonna forget his name.
Yeah, that character's interesting because he's kind of like, they're gonna take it from you.
Yeah,
right from the beginning.
What they do with it, you're not gonna have any control over, which is just an interesting thought. Really,
and he foreshadows that too with his own inventions, his own designs. Like, hey, I'm adding a bunch of extra crap to these planes so that they don't become like mass produced and like put into production, because I don't want them to do that. Right. So
and then you get good, interesting parallels with just like artists or really any form of art, or even if you were like going to make a show and then it gets bought out and the studio changes this, and this, like, the pursuit of a dream and that perfect vision that you have versus what reality kind of makes you whittle it down to.
Yeah. The bastardization of your dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of led into my second question.
Okay.
Which was just, what does the title of the movie mean to you?
I've been thinking about that. And I don't like.
I think
There's
it's
always. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think it's pretty simple. I think it's like go for it and like live life and chase the dream instead of being resigned to what might happen down the road or what other people might do with it or I think it's just it kind of like because often when it comes up in the movie it's like the wind rises like live or like we need to it's something
Yeah.
along those lines.
Right.
The second part
Is the wind still rising? Is one of the questions that he gets asked. Is like, is it still rising for you? Like, are
and
you
I think
still
that means like
enjoying what you're doing?
yeah like within him is like the
Yeah.
passion the passion
Right.
rises kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly. Are the wheels still turning? Are you still
Mm-hmm.
enjoying this? Is your imagination still running wild when you think about this? When you think about planes and this job?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's most of it. The movie has an interesting. It uses wind in an interesting way, though.
Yeah.
Where there's definitely kind of a juxtaposition, and they're constantly using wind to like bring him good things.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side, like the perfect encapsulation of this, I think, is when he's on the train and the wind blows his hat off, and then Naoko grabs it, and that's when they meet. And that's the introduction of the girl who will be his wife one day.
Yeah.
But then conversely, 5 movie minutes later, with the earthquake, the wind is what pushes the fire in
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well and
Mhm.
causes all this destruction. So we get kind of a little encapsulation of basically what the whole story is going to be for him
Mm-hmm.
in that little 5-minute moment. And I think it's done really, really well how they're able to just kind of take a more literal look at like to your point, Dylan, of just like follow your dreams and be inspired. And that's kind of the only way to live.
Yeah.
And then, then there's kind of a turn on that as you get farther down the road, because if it becomes obsessive or if you fail at it, like it can lead to sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like suffering in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I was going to say an interesting point with that, how they're using visually wind. A lot of the very important scenes with him and Naoko, it is windy or it's blustery or those type of deals. I'm also realizing, and this might not be true because this thought just came to me, but I had the idea that he does such a good job, especially in the Tokyo fire and the aftermath, and kind of when Hiro's a younger man, of showing blue collar workers or just like the impoverished or just like people and like just the way that they're drawn and like the expressions on their face, you get the feeling that they have given up on their dreams. Like they are like Hiro is like chasing something and like giving fuel to this fire within that like not everybody has, or like kind of separate, and it's just like little subtle things. And now I would be curious to go back and look and see if there's ever wind when they show those characters, or if it's just when it's like, how much he uses that. But it's just like, it's a really interesting how he portrays that, like just the way that Hiro is, he stands out because he's just like going for it like so hard, and he believes it like so passionately. And like,
whether the wind is at his back or or in his face, like he's still driving forward, and the wind is required for him to achieve his dreams. I mean, that's what's required for the plane to fly. That's everything. That's the encapsulation of life, almost. Like
him sitting
sitting
outside in the train whenever he's riding the train, he sits outside, so the wind's going through his hair and stuff. Very interesting.
We talk about a little. What a great title.
Yeah, seriously.
That could have been my opening statement. Amazing movie title.
It's just it's a deeply moving movie without really having, I mean, in my opinion, like a ton of dialogue. It's kind of quiet and reserved. Like there's characters that talk and go back and forth a lot, but a lot of what this movie is about is kind of unsaid. Especially the scene when he meets Naoko later on in life and like catches the umbrella, or the parasol rather, like that all happens before he like truly knows who she is or any of that stuff. And that's all it's all wind driven, but it's all understated. And then he goes like, oh, hey, here you go. Like whatever. And that happens. It doesn't feel,
I really like the symmetry in that scene with her catching his hat and then they meet again later and he catches the umbrella.
Yeah.
There's just, I feel like upon thinking about it again, there just wasn't as much dialogue. There was space for the characters to like breathe or like be, just kind of fit into their moment or themselves, as opposed to like talking through all of these things that need to happen. I need to explain this and this and this. It's just kind of going on. And I feel like you don't always see that in animation.
I want to come back around to that when we do our defining moments.
Okay.
If you had any other questions, or we can just dive into defining moments.
My quick question, I just have one. Off the top of your head, you get one screensaver from this movie.
Oh, God.
You must choose.
Oh, man. That's really tough. I probably would choose the flight of his paper airplane. Something from that sequence is something from there.
It's just kind of cruising around and flipping,
or like when he throws it and it goes straight up to her, and or when she throws it down, like, and he maybe like falls over. So I don't know. Like that whole sequence was very fun and very whimsical.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, it's hard not to pick the scene when they're together and it's windy and they're outside under the umbrella and she's painting.
Yeah, that's the cover, I think, of...
or just like kind of the saved image on HBO Max. That one's really good, too. I mean, as with all of Ghibli's movies, you can just... Like, you could pick, like, the outside of the hotel.
Yeah.
With like, real people.
Any of those shots during the credits that are just...
I was just going to say that.
Like, it's just a still.
Yeah.
They're beautiful. Yeah, I could have picked any one of those. The three contenders I had was at the near the beginning when he's still a kid and he's looking up at the sky with the planes and it shows his face with the planes going across it. Like, I thought that was really cool. The other one was on the train. There's an extended shot where it shows the shadow of the train going over the landscape.
Yep.
And I just was like, how did they do that? Like, it would like the shadow and the wind, like they're doing so much stuff at once and it looks amazing. And then the last one would be the more chill one, which is just Hiro and Naoko holding hands while he works and smokes.
Yeah. That's
when he has to work.
That's like a good like lo-fi beats. Like,
yep, exactly. And like she's just like, they're just holding hands. He's working. She's just chilling. He's like, can I smoke? She's like, I don't care. Like, it's just
from behind him.
He's like, I have to go outside. She's like, do it here. I don't want to.
That's so good.
I think I might go with that one.
It's really dark, so I wouldn't actually pick it, but from just like images that stunned me, like something involving that fire.
Yeah.
Also, man, there was one shot where they had like, after he'd kind of gotten into Tokyo and found his friend at like the library or like the university, and there's some stuff like on fire just kind of floating through the air.
Oh yeah.
That was an image. I was like, Jesus, how do they do this?
Yeah. I think the other two that I would pick would be maybe the shot at the end as he's talking to his mentor as they're walking away. Right before the credits roll and like the wind is going over the grass and you can see like each individual. It's like Americans do not make movies that look like that. They just don't.
Every blade of grass doesn't get the attention.
Like, and it's just so peaceful and perfect. Either that or when they show his that same scene, they're showing all of the new Zeros, the plane flying, and he like waves to the pilots, and then they go join the rest of them in the sky, and there's like thousands, and you can't really tell if they're either birds or if they're his actual plane, or if they're his paper plane. They all kind of look the same, and some of them are something, and some of them are, that's a great shot. And you see like there's like 12 of them, going up and joining the rest, and like I thought that was an amazing shot.
Nice,
for sure. All right, on to defining moments.
Defining moments.
Okay.
So for me, I had two that like really stuck with me. One was the paper airplane scene, which is just so sweet and romantic and fun. Yeah. To just watch like the enthusiasm between the two of them with like throwing this paper airplane back and forth like they're 7 years old. It's just a really wonderful scene. And then the earthquake has just burned an image in my mind. I did a lot of reading about this earthquake actually when the movie was over.
Okay.
You want me to share that now, or should we put?
Let's do that. Let's do that in the tidbits because I don't have. There's not a ton.
That sounds like tidbits.
So we'll save it for tidbits.
I'll start, and then you can.
Those are my two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dylan?
My two, I would say. Well, I had three. One is the opening dream sequence. I just thought that was so well done. I mean, way to just go for it, and then it gets kind of dark, and you're like, oh my goodness, like what are we in for today? Just really good. The second one was the earthquake leading into the Tokyo fire, and mostly just leading into like the shots of the crowd in disarray. Just the crowd, the throngs of people going everywhere. Like in every shot, there'd be people in the background. Like if there was rooftops, you'd see like some people on their roof, like looking, some other people doing this. Like it was so just like people everywhere, and it really like I just never seen that like animated like that before, and that was just fantastic.
Yeah, I like that point because it like the movie does not forget the human element.
Yeah,
at all, even though it's got like these crazy scenes of like kind of the railroad tracks like being lifted and somehow the train not
the ripple.
derailing.
Mm-hmm.
And that initial shot of kind of when it starts and you get that shockwave and then like the houses start, like that's all just stunning. But I like your point of how well it grabs the reactions and like the experience that the people are going through.
Yeah, just like the chaos on the ground. And then last was Hiro and Maiko, their final moments together. Just those shots towards the end where, to your point, Adam, they don't say a lot to each other. It's a lot of like they don't just over talk about the situation and about like, I'm gonna die, but I need to chase my dream, and it's all very kind of unspoken, just like a handhold here, a look here, like, and they're just kind of like in it together. And those scenes were just fantastic. So those would be my defining moments.
Yeah, my defining moments: the paper airplane scene, and then the second one I would say would probably be. I think it's after the scene where he catches the parasol, but she's out painting again, and it's where the cover comes from. She's just out kind of painting by herself, and he like walks up behind her, and it's just like that quiet understanding of like, this is what I wanted, this is what I have, because that's a grounding moment for him. Like, what do I want to do ethically with like the making of this plane? Like, I'm going to pursue it because this is what I've always wanted, but like, how much do I really like? What's important to me? And that's the grounding and the love for his character. It just kind of reinforces everything we've seen about him from up until that point. And then obviously that we're not that far from the end around that time, but those two scenes I thought were great, and I think that's what really pulls it together.
You guys have anything for observations and musings? I've kind of covered mine already, just kind of the direction the conversation has gone.
I have one.
Okay.
Castorp, the man who he meets,
the German.
The German is hanging around when like the airplane scene happens. He is one of the creepiest looking good guys ever.
Well, like, is he a good guy?
He's a good guy, right? Or at least he's an ally. He's
okay. I'll talk about this in tidbits then.
He looks like a villain. He looks like he'd be like a Nazi. Like and like in a lot of his interactions, his like eyes are just like super big. He does a lot of like this.
He also
and you're just like, oh my god, dude! But he's a sweet man.
I don't know if this is. I need to rewatch it, but I think it's the same. There's a book that came out in 2020 called "Sharing a House with the Never-Ending Man: 15 Years at Studio Ghibli," written by Steve Alpert, and there's a Ghibli character on the cover, and I'm pretty sure that's him. If it is him, I'll find that image and I'll throw it on here and kind of post so that people can see maybe the two of them side by side. Okay. But it's fascinating because I owned that book, so I've seen that image before, and then it took me a while to remember that it came from the book. So when that guy showed up in the movie, I was like, I've seen that. This is an animated movie. How have I seen that guy before?
Yeah.
Like it's not a sequel. It's not like an actor.
Yeah.
Like where did he come from?
And put him in something else. Like
yeah, right. Just somebody they throw in the background in all of their movies.
The musings, observations. I think I paid attention to the music in this movie more than anything else because it's like I said, it's so quiet and reserved. There's not always talking going on, and it's very like it's lighthearted. Obviously, it matches the mood, the tone of each scene, but it feels more prominent than what I'm normally used to, because I pay it. Obviously, it's kind of music to me in movies is one of those things that just kind of happens and it informs your emotions on it, but you don't ever really consciously know what's going on or how it's
not
influencing
always,
you.
No.
At least I don't. I know you guys are a little bit more observant of that kind of stuff. And the music in this I just really paid attention to, and everything was just kind of like light and airy, and it was great. It fit so well.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. I had it listed in my notes here, but I'd kind of missed it. That the score for this movie is brilliant. I think.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
one of their best for sure, and it really elevates the movie.
All
All
right.
right, it's time for some tidbits.
All right, I got a few, and then we'll let Nate talk about the earthquake. So
Feels weird to include like death tolls in a segment called tidbits.
Hey,
but
it's based. There's realism in this movie. Might as well talk about it, right?
There is, yeah.
Mostly realism.
Mostly, yeah.
Mhm.
So many have speculated that the character of Castor was inspired by the real-life Soviet spy Richard Sorge. So that's why I was like, is he bad? Like, he looks bad. Everything about him screams, I am not here for like goodness. Like, I'm trying to take your plans and steal them and see what you're up to. So I thought that was interesting. And then the one I found really funny, because in the dream right away, I was like, that doesn't really sound like an engine of a plane. It's human voices are largely used for all of the sound effects, the engine roars and the earthquake. So if you go back and watch this movie, like if you're listening to his plane at the beginning, or even when the Japanese Zero like starts to fly, you hear like, and it's like, that's a dude. Somebody's just doing a sound effect. They didn't like take a real engine noise. It's kind of funny.
That's a
fantastic
great
tidbit, Adam.
Oh my
and
gosh.
something that I didn't pick up on. I wouldn't pick up on that. I don't know like anything about planes. So it's cool that you did, though, because it's something that
it just sounds like a kid playing
with.
And being like, it's
yeah.
That's
Which
great.
I like that, though. It really fits kind of the follow your dreams nature of this. I love that. That's a wonderful
and especially because the movie starts with him in a dream and him building this plane and it being kind of like, the engine starts and it just kind of lifts off and then flies away. It's like, well, that's not how planes work. So like,
it basically has like bird wings.
yeah. It's a really neat little.
I am definitely, when I rewatch this, I am going to be listening for that.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's really all I had. Besides, the fact that we said that this kind of a conglomeration of a couple different stories and that sort of thing. So without further ado, the earthquake.
Yeah. So this is a real event. It happened on September 1st, 1923. It's referred to as the Great Kanto Earthquake. A 60 by 60 mile segment, 6 miles beneath the bottom of the ocean, moved and caused an 8-point earthquake. And because it was in the bay, it launched a 40-foot tsunami into the coast. It killed 140,000 people.
Holy
my God.
Yeah.
In 1923.
In 1923. And 44,000 people were killed by that fire. They had taken refuge kind of after it had settled down a little bit, kind of over in an area that didn't seem as damaged.
Fire prone.
And this sort of phenomenon, which a fire tornado formed.
Whoa.
And
always a good time.
Which they refer to as a dragon twist.
Oh, great name for what that is.
Yeah, isn't it?
Sounds like it'd be a good shot. A shot name too.
Yeah, and there was a lot I read. I won't get too much into this on this episode, but some of the stuff I read kind of mark this as like the beginning of the ultra nationalist fascist movement, because it sounds like this was basically blamed on Korean people who lived in Japan. And this led directly to the next 10 days to this like huge massacre. Whoa. where Japanese people just murdered like thousands of Koreans, and like the police and citizens and the government were involved. And just lots of crazy stuff.
So
that's what I've read in a couple different spots online. I don't seemed pretty accurate, but I don't know. Sounds like it's still denied kind of in parts of Japan by people more on the right side of the political spectrum.
Weird.
Which kind of
that
type of stuff never happens here.
No parallels politically ever. Like,
it's interesting too, because that's a pretty dark kind of undertone and kind of a comment about like the direction the government went kind of after that. But I feel like this movie does not talk about that at all. Like this movie, it's not about that. It would have gotten bogged down in. It treats like it's like, that this ends up in World War II, and there's just an inevitable kind of slow march towards war, and that's all that we're going to talk about here. Is there's a slow march towards war,
right? But you start to get more characters who show up who exhibit more like fascist tendencies, and it gets more militaristic. So it's kind of like coming in from the sides, and it's not like overtly stated as like a cause and effect kind of thing. But like after that happens, and it is early enough in the story where you might just watch it and think like, well, yeah, this is where the story is going. But it does. There are people who kind of attribute the reaction to that as kind of, and the heightened nationalism as kind of the first step in thousands of steps that are required to kind of get from there to where they ended up.
Interesting. Very interesting. Thank you for that tidbit.
Yeah, I read enough about that and I was like, I need to share this because this is fascinating to me.
Yeah,
it's got to get included.
So now it is time, Adam, to award the McCabe Coat of Excellence. And if this is your first time,
there it is.
It's your first time with us,
joining us on Exploring Cinema or on our other channel, Speak, Film, and Enter. We are very big fans of the movie, the 70s Robert Altman movie, McCabe and Mrs. Miller. And that image there is just one of our favorite movie images of all time. That coat is incredible. So at the end of each of these episodes, we like to award that coat to someone involved in the movie if we feel that they have earned it. And we had our first episode had a sweep.
Yep.
I think we'll probably get one again for this. Dylan, what were you gonna say?
It's kind of like a way cooler green jacket. And then when you when you get one, you're part of a club that has worn the McCabe Coat of Excellence. You know, we always, every movie there's a new one to give out. We get them made for every movie. But and the first one, just to remind people, who the first movie that we did was Mulholland Drive. And for that, we unanimously awarded the McCabe Coat of Excellence to Naomi Watts. So I'm sure she is wondering who will join her in the McCabe Club.
Yes, and we should be clear, we're each individually awarding this. And if we didn't like the movie and don't feel that anybody earned it, we're not just giving it away.
Yeah, that's true. That's
you
true.
Don't
we
automatically get one. Not
but
every
you have
movie
to earn
do.
it.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, Miyazaki.
Yeah.
It's Miyazaki.
Kind of,
I think we're unanimous again. Yeah.
This is honestly like the easiest. Animated movies, I feel like, are a little simpler because it's not. It's going to be a rare instance, I think, where like for an animated movie, you're going to award it to a voice actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, is there a different writer versus director versus like animator? Like sometimes it might just be the movie looks amazing, the story's mediocre, the animators get it.
Yeah.
But I feel like with animated movies, you're just kind of removing a certain aspect. But you're adding one, I guess, with animators. So McCabe Coat of Excellence, again, unanimous for Hayao Miyazaki. A big honor for him, I'm sure.
Yep, good for him to win one before he actually retires. He came back to make one more movie, but I think it was also to get a coat.
Yeah, to get the coat.
It had to be.
Yeah, and he's got it.
So, with that, closing statements. I guess I'll go first. This is just a great movie, and it's incredible just how effortless it feels.
Yeah,
it like these take so much time to make, and there's so much care and thought put into them, and the finished product is always so polished.
Yeah,
and they make it look so easy. And these are among my favorite movies because I know how hard they are to make.
Yeah,
and I appreciate everything that goes into them. And like even Dylan, like you said, like you can even just appreciate the artwork here and the drawing and grab something for your screensaver.
Yeah.
A lot of people use Ghibli art for screensavers, and there's a reason. It's because they all look incredible. So not my favorite of Miyazaki's movies, but it's great. That's just more a testament to how many amazing movies he's made.
Yeah, in a way, it's almost like his style, the style of Ghibli movies, and the way he tells the story combined with the style. It almost just like it makes you like quote unquote appreciate the little things, like just like subconsciously without even like realizing it, because you just every little detail is so beautiful, and like every person on the train and every flower in the wind, and it does make you it just puts you in this mindset of like appreciating every little thing. So then he can get away with just like, all that happens is this scene is she gets a cup of tea for him and she sets it on the table and he drinks it. And it's like, it's beautiful.
So like, little moments in life. Well, and to what you just said, that's the ending of the movie. Like that, it's all about those quiet moments and like chasing your dreams and being content with what you have and what you're doing and the love in your life, right? Like,
yeah. But my closing statement is it's a damn fine film from a legendary director who goes against the grain and gives us non-magical delight. And that's what also really sticks out with this is of all of his movies, there's no magic. We deal with dreams for sure. And in those dreams, a lot of crazy things happen. But beyond that, it's a very real story that takes place in reality, in a historical time period. And they stay accurate to that. And I just think that's really cool for him to kind of zig after zagging for so long.
Yeah, I like that.
So
Adam?
Over to you, Adam.
I guess I don't have anything polished for a closing statement, but I'd say
Dylan's just putting us all in the dust. Ignore his.
Right,
and just,
right.
Yeah, you better get used to
from the
it. I spent a long time on these statements to try to get them into one long run-on sentence.
I really appreciate the whimsy in this movie, the dream sequences that we do get. I really appreciate the message in this movie, and just the overall, like, again, quiet story of this man, his life, the fictionalized version of his personal life. Everything about this movie is gorgeous and wonderful, and I think it deserves to be seen. And it's an absolute crime that it lost to Frozen in the Oscars.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
An absolute crime. It's an American audience. That's why Frozen won. But
Frozen
that's the only reason.
Yeah, it was so popular.
Frozen has just like gone downhill so much.
It's fine. Like when I saw Frozen, I enjoyed it, but like it's fine.
But like it came out initially and it made like $1 zillion and was making people's like best animated movies of all time list, like best Disney movie since The Lion King. Like, and it's just kind of, I feel like we've kind of gotten removed from it a little bit, and we're all like, okay, that one's not quite as great as maybe we thought. I think people were just that thirsty for another Disney musical that wasn't terrible.
And also, I felt like they were thirsty for something. I
definitely thought you were going to say.
Oh no, what were you going to say?
For some characters there, like.
Oh yeah,
I was going to say some of those characters. I think there was a lot of internet people doing that. So.
No, I was just going to say, like, I felt like it was like people wanted that Shrek feeling again of like the first Shrek of kind of, and I felt like Frozen gave them that, and they were like, this is But anyways, either way, The Wind Rises is where it's really at.
Far superior.
Just a far superior movie. So.
All right.
Far superior indeed. I wanted to say it too.
Yeah. Good job, Dylan.
Yep.
We got there.
I think that does it for the second episode of Exploring Cinema. This was a really fun movie to do.
Yes.
Hopefully this gets out there and people are able to check this out because a very fun movie to talk about and fits right in with the Oppenheimer release this weekend. Yes,
it'll be very interesting. I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say that the character and nuances of Robert Oppenheimer are not going to be as explored as well as the character and nuances of Hero in this movie. We'll see.
We'll see.
I don't think I'm walking out of there feeling like I know Robert Oppenheimer the way I feel like I know Hero, but we'll see. We'll see.
All right. We'd like to end this with a quote. So, Adam, I think it is your turn to put a wrap on the show.
You cannot change fate. However, you can rise to meet it if you so choose.